All right, so we're at the lunch bunch session with dietitian Jessica LaForce and burn outreach coordinator Lauren Spink, hosted by the Firefighters Burn Institute. So Lauren, I'll let you take it away.
I don't have too much to say. I think Jessica will be able to say it all, but thank you very much for coming, and we're happy that you're able to join us again. I know after the first time we had a lot of people that were interested in listening to you. So thank you again for joining us, and I'll hand it to you.
Well, thank you for inviting me back. For those that have heard this talk before, it's pretty much the same talk. It's an encore presentation, and then I added a little bit of extra stuff in there talking about the holidays, which are coming up. So am I able to share my screen?
Yes, I just set you as a co-host.
Perfect. So let me pull this up really quickly. And here we go. Okay, so we are going to be talking today about nutrition after a burn injury. We'll look at how your nutrition needs will change from the time of burn injury to rehab and then beyond. We'll also look at what affects your diet and your nutrition needs after you leave the hospital and what a balanced diet would look like for you. And then finally, we will talk briefly about whether or not vitamin and mineral supplements are needed for the long term. And then, like I said, we'll talk a little bit about how to continue to eat healthy through the holidays. Okay, so as we, I think, all know and appreciate, nutrition plays a really important role in healing and recovery after a burn injury. We need more calories, protein, and vitamins and minerals than normal after a burn injury due to the increase in metabolism that occurs from the stress response that your body undergoes, as well as surgeries and maybe infections that might develop. Nutrition is also really important to make new tissue, to improve your muscle strength and support your immune system. So right after a burn injury, your calorie needs are going to increase up to 20 to 80% above normal. And these extra calories and then the protein are needed to meet your body's demand for energy and provide nutrients for healing. And your protein needs will or can double if your burn injury is quite large. While you're in the hospital, your nutrition needs are usually met either with a specialized diet that's really high in calories and protein, and some people might need a feeding tube if you're not able to eat enough or eat at all. Muscle loss will happen after a major burn injury, regardless of how much nutrition you receive, and that's due to the stress response as well as not being very active while you're in the hospital. Interestingly, muscle loss, if it does happen, it doesn't occur equally throughout your body. So the muscle that you do lose will occur more prominently in your arms compared to the rest of your body. And then as you recover and as you regain weight that you might have lost during your hospitalization, most of that weight you actually gain back, at least at first, will be body fat, which tends to show up more in your trunk compared to the rest of your body. So I thought that was interesting, especially if you're curious about how your body changes during recovery. So even after your wounds are healed, you may still experience fatigue. You might have difficulty regaining weight that you've lost. You might experience functional impairment that might make it difficult to perform activities of daily living. You might also have decreased muscle strength and endurance. And even people who have fully healed from their burn injury and were at least a year out from the hospital stay still experienced lower muscle strength and endurance. So it is quite normal to have a long recovery even after your wounds are healed. And this effect on muscle function can last for several years. Slowly, your body will start to shift back to normal calorie and protein needs. But even after you go home, your calorie and protein needs will stay higher than normal. And that will really depend on how much healing you still have left to do, how much weight you lost, and how much muscle mass you've lost, and if there's any chronic medical conditions that you also have on top of that. So usually what I tell people is like like for the next 6 to 12 months after you leave the hospital, your calorie and protein needs are still going to be higher than what they were before the burn injury. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, there's no one size fits all diet, especially related to burn recovery. Your diet will depend on your the amount of wound healing that remains, how active you are, and your calorie needs will also depend on your weight status. So, you know, whether or not whether your goal is to regain your weight, maintain your current weight, or to lose weight if you're overweight. Although I would also say that trying to lose weight while you're still recovering from a burn injury is not recommended, because we want you to focus on rebuilding your strength and healing. Some people, when they leave the hospital, will continue to eat a high calorie diet. And you might find that you're gaining too much weight too quickly. And that's an indicator that you're probably getting more calories than what your body is using. So that would be okay to scale back a little bit on the calories and still really focus on your protein. If you have a scale at home, I would suggest that you check your weight weekly to monitor your progress and then adjust your calorie intake accordingly. If you're trying to gain weight, a realistic goal for weight gain is about 1 to 2 pounds a week. And if you're struggling to regain that weight, try to add in about 500 extra calories every day on top of what you normally eat. So 500 calories might be a couple of tablespoons of peanut butter with about 10 Ritz crackers, 2 cartons of whole milk yogurt, or 2 cartons of a nutrition drink like Ensure or Boost. And so our goals for nutrition are to get to achieve a balanced diet and still focus on high protein. And this can continue, like I had mentioned previously, for a year or longer after your wounds have healed, depending on your muscle strength and your endurance. Most people can return to a quote unquote normal diet, meaning just regular foods when you go home after a hospital stay, but this might not be everyone's experience. Your diet might look a little different if you've experienced swallowing issues. So some people do need a feeding tube to supplement their nutrition, or you might need to change the texture of your food, such as like eating pureed foods or softer foods, or using thicker liquids to help you safely swallow your food. You might also experience a low appetite. So in those cases, we really rely on nutrition drinks and supplements to add to the foods that you're able to eat at mealtimes and snacks. And sometimes medication is needed to help your appetite, and that might be prescribed by your doctor. Your diet might also look a little different if you've had functional limitations related to contractures in your arms or hands, your mouth or your neck that might make it difficult to feed yourself. And fatigue might also limit your diet or change how you eat, since that might make it really challenging to prepare your foods or even just think about planning meals or feeding yourself. So protein, 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 you've probably had this drilled into you that we're really focusing on protein. The high protein diet, once you get home again, will support your rehab and rebuilding your muscle strength. You probably know your protein foods by now, but these are, again, going to come from your meat, your poultry and fish, eggs, nuts and beans. And then quinoa is a nice complete protein from a grain. And then tofu, if you're vegetarian or a vegan, is also great to add in. As far as how much protein you need, a reasonable estimation is about 0.5 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. But if you are in the overweight or obese category in your weight, that might tend to overestimate your protein. So you'd want to stick with the lower range. But most people don't need to count their protein. We just want to make sure that you're getting a good protein source with every meal and snack. And it's only when your wounds aren't healing or you're developing complications or not seeing an improvement in your energy level and in your endurance that we might really want to focus in on exactly how much protein you're getting. So just some ideas for quick meal, high protein meals and snacks. Trying to focus on things that are easy to prepare or can be purchased already prepared, so you can just grab and go. Things like sandwiches or wraps are easier to hold and eat. Chili or soups that have lots of beans or meat in them can really add a good amount of protein. Burritos or pizza with meat toppings are good too. Yogurt, if you need to add some calories, you can add some granola to that, or you can add some nuts or seeds for extra protein. Trail mix is great, and you can easily make that at home, mixing in your favorite cereal, dried fruit, nuts. You can add a little chocolate if you have a sweet tooth, so you can really get creative with that. Peanut butter and pretzels or hummus with crackers or pretzels is a great one as well. You can also have that with vegetables, hummus and vegetables, or peanut butter with some fruit to get your vegetables and fruit in. And then smoothies are also a great way to get protein, and using a protein powder or some yogurt to increase the protein. So food is always the preferred way to get your nutrition, but some people struggle to regain the weight that they've lost or get enough protein in, especially if you have certain diet restrictions, or if you follow a vegan or a vegetarian diet. It might be a little bit more challenging to get your protein in, depending on your food preferences. So you could add in a nutrition supplement in the form of a nutrition drink, a protein bar, or a protein powder. And what you choose depends on if your goal is to add in just protein or if you need more calories and protein. So it's important to read the labels. And if you're looking for just a protein boost to your shakes or something like that, your foods, your hot cereal, protein powders are a good way to go. Whey protein is a easily absorbed form of protein that you can add in, but really look at the labels, because each scoop, it will vary depending on the product and how much protein it adds in, and protein can really add up quickly. So just be cautious with that. So let's look at what planning a balanced diet looks like. The plate model is a really easy way to balance your meals. And we're looking at getting all the different food groups on your plate, including carbohydrates, proteins, those non-starchy vegetables, and then even dairy. So we start off by dividing half of our plate, or dividing our plate in half, and then filling that with non-starchy vegetables like green beans or a big salad or roasted broccoli and cauliflower, whatever vegetable you find appetizing. 1/4 of your plate will be filled with protein, such as chicken or fish or beef, or one of your plant-based proteins like tofu or beans. And then the last 1/4 of your plate will be filled with a starch, such as pasta or rice or a dinner roll. And then you can pair your plate with a low-calorie unsweetened beverage like Water's great, iced tea. You can get a glass of milk in there if you drink milk. And then you can even add a piece of fruit. And fruit can either be, your dessert. It could also be a snack between meals if that's just too much food for you to eat in one sitting. So this is a method and that is really to get you to start focusing on dividing up your plate, balancing out your portions of carbs and protein with fruits and vegetables, and also help to avoid excess carbohydrates and excess calories if your goal is to maintain your weight or have some gradual weight loss or help with blood sugar management. So if you're still trying to add in extra protein, you can add little proteins to your foods on your meal, such as like adding nuts to your salad, or and if you're trying to add extra calories, you can always drizzle some oil over your salad or vegetables, add a little butter to your vegetables, mix it into your pasta. But if weight gain is not your goal, then you would not want to add those items to your meals. Okay, so right after a burn injury, your body will need extra vitamins and minerals to help build new tissue and replace the vitamins that you lose through your wounds. And then you also actually lose quite a bit through your urine as well when your body is stressed. Many of these vitamins and minerals also have antioxidant functions that are helpful in combating the negative effects of inflammation and also help to support your immune system. So they're really important. In the hospital, we monitor your healing progress and then also look at your lab values to determine the right dose of vitamins and minerals that you need. But by the time you're ready to leave the hospital, you most likely will not need any extra vitamin and mineral supplements unless you're still having a hard time eating, or if you're not eating a balanced diet or getting much variety in the foods that you're eating. So if you're missing major food groups like dairy or fruits and vegetables or whole grains, a multivitamin with mineral supplement is probably a good choice for you. And then also for long-term health and specific to people that have had burn injuries, you might also need vitamin D, especially if your burn injury covered parts of your body that are usually exposed to the sun, like your face and your neck, your arms, and your legs. So why is vitamin D so important? Well, we know that vitamin D is essential for bone health, and it also helps to maintain a balance of calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus in your body. We're also learning that vitamin D has several other important functions throughout our body related to immune function, muscle performance. It helps to reduce inflammation and regulate cell growth. Furthermore, there's several studies that are coming out that suggest low vitamin D levels are associated with developing several chronic diseases like heart disease and high blood pressure, certain cancers, osteoporosis, and autoimmune disorders like rheumatoid arthritis or lupus. So vitamin D is interesting in that it can be made in the skin from exposure to sunlight, specifically UV radiation exposure. Most people get their vitamin D through the sun. It's important to note, though, that you're only able to produce vitamin D in your skin from the sun if your shadow is shorter than you. So that's usually like in the middle of the day between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. And then also, if you live above the 32nd latitude, which is anywhere north of San Diego, you won't be able to produce vitamin D from your skin in the winter months. So November through March, typically, because of the angle of the sun. And then lastly, the sun exposure needs to occur outside without any sunscreen because the UV radiation will not pass through windows. So there are also food sources of vitamin D. They're usually not enough to maintain good vitamin D levels, but the vitamin D will come from fatty fish like sardines, salmon, mackerel, trout, It can also be found in cheese and egg yolks. Fortified foods provide most of the vitamin D that we consume, and this is found in like milk alternatives like rice milk or soy milk, yogurt, orange juice, things like that. Mushrooms also can contain vitamin D, but the amount that they have depends on if they're grown under a UV light or not. And supplements are also a way to get vitamin D as well. There's two forms available, vitamin D2 or D3. Both are absorbed well, but most of the evidence points to vitamin D3 as being the better option to bring up your vitamin D level more quickly and maintain that level longer than vitamin D2. So if you're going to grab a vitamin D supplement off the shelf, I would suggest vitamin D3 rather than D2. And there's also several factors that will lower vitamin D absorption. So older people and those that have darker skin with a higher skin melanin content do not absorb as much vitamin D or make as much vitamin D in their skin. Let's see. And people that are overweight or obese have a harder time absorbing vitamin D. Those with kidney or liver disease or have diseases that lead to poor absorption of nutrients in your gut won't absorb vitamin D very well. And also those that have limited sun exposure, wear a lot of sunscreen or protective clothing, or live in areas that have a lot of cloud cover or smog. And then also, like I mentioned, the season or the time of day can affect how much vitamin D you make. So vitamin D can be an issue after burn injury, like I said, and there's many barriers to maintaining your vitamin D level after burn injury. First and foremost, you might have spent a long time in the hospital, which means that you're not having that sun exposure outside. And then after discharge, you're educated to limit your exposure to the sun because you might be more intolerant to the heat. You might not be able to produce sweat as well. And run the risk of overheating. And there's also the risk of burn scar hyperpigmentation. Also, the tissue that has been injured and the skin surrounding the scars will not be able to make vitamin D from the sunlight very well. So there's several factors that kind of put you at a disadvantage for good vitamin D status. So what do we do about that? First and foremost, I would contact your doctor and ask them to check your vitamin D level. This is something that I think most people should do annually. If your vitamin D level is low, your doctor should be prescribing you a high dose to bring up your level. And then you would transition to a maintenance dose after your level normalizes. And then if your vitamin D level is normal, you can either continue doing what you're doing and just kind of monitor it annually, or you can take a standard daily dose, which is about 2,000 units of vitamin D3. And that really depends on your lifestyle and other factors. Make sure that you're including good sources of vitamin D in your diet every day. And very importantly, continue to protect yourself against sun exposure, especially if it's related to your burn recovery. Since there's other risk factors aside from just the normal risks after burn injury. Okay, so let's talk briefly about the holidays that are coming up. Since we all enjoy a good holiday meal, myself included, and you should enjoy it. And hopefully we can talk through some strategies to continue to stay healthy through the holiday season. So that you're not stressed about, throwing your diet off track. So first and foremost, there is a lot of lovely seasonal produce in our area. And so stock your kitchen with lots of fresh fruits and vegetables. Visit your local farms, your farmers markets, and choose those fruits and vegetables that are in season right now. So some great ones are apples, persimmons, pomegranates, citrus is coming into season as well. For vegetables, that might be your winter squash like butternut or acorn squash, broccoli and cauliflower, green beans, things like that. And then I always like to keep a bowl of fresh fruit on the counter so it's easy to grab and snack on when I'm getting hungry. Or when you get home from the farmer's market or the grocery store, wash your produce, chop it up, have it ready to go in the fridge so that you can just grab it easily. So it's really a nice grab and go snack. Also, it's important that you enjoy your favorite holiday foods. I don't want you to restrict yourself or think that you can't enjoy a decadent holiday treat. Because food not only nourishes your body, it nourishes your soul, and it should be enjoyed. I truly believe that every bite of food should be enjoyable. There's no need to avoid your favorite holiday foods either. So what I would suggest is pick those foods that you really, really like and pass on the foods that don't really interest you. Don't just add them to your plate because you think you should, or you don't want to offend anybody. Make every bite count. And then start with a small serving and of your favorite foods and listen to your body. So we still want to enjoy or watch the portion. So enjoy your food, but don't go crazy. I try to tell my daughter too, like, listen to your body. How does your tummy feel? Do we need to eat more? That's really going to be your guide. If you are hosting or attending a holiday party or a dinner, start your day with a small, sensible meal or eat a snack before the event. Choose something that has some lean protein in it, some fruits and vegetables, and some whole grains so that you're not arriving to the party or starting your dinner party starving where you might be more apt to overeat. Also, put your leftovers away after everyone's done eating. This helps to reduce snacking out of boredom or anxiety. And share your leftovers with guests. If you have a ton of food left over, send them home with a little doggy bag of food. I really like to bake during the holidays, but I have a ton of cookies, a ton of cakes and breads. I don't want to eat it all. So I try to share it with my friends and neighbors. So share the love. And that way you're not tempted to eat more than you need. Also, you can take a portion of those foods and freeze them. So that way you have a meal or a treat for later, which can save you time when you're hungry later on during the week. And then lastly, pay attention to your beverages because holiday beverages can really add up in the calorie department. So things like eggnog or ciders or wine or holiday cocktails can really add a lot of extra calories. And then alcohol can also lower your inhibition and might lead to overeating and not paying attention to those body cues that your tummy is starting to feel full. So still enjoy your seasonal drink with dinner or to toast, but then consider switching to water or like a sparkling water if you want something fancy, or diet beverages for the rest of the evening. And that is all I have. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have for me.
And just a quick heads up, we'll do at least 3 or so questions and then we'll just stop the recording. So go ahead with the questions.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. Well, I have 2. One is, and I don't know if you can answer this, if it's a long answer, but hopefully not. Why do people gain weight when they're stressed out? Is that also like a response?
It can be a couple of reasons. It could be related to some hormonal changes that make it more likely to store fat. And that's more like a survival, like an adaptation mechanism that we developed over, the years evolution wise. And then also some people tend to stress eat, and you might have that like mindless eating, not even knowing that you're like eating more calories than normal. So. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then my other question is, you mentioned some protein drinks and powders. Is there, I know you said to read like the labels, but is there one in particular that you would recommend?
Or stay away from?
Which ones to stay away from? Is that what you asked?
Either stay away from or go towards.
Yeah. That's a tough question because there's so many different types of nutrition drinks and powders. And it depends on if you have diabetes, if you have kidney disease, if you have heart disease, if your goal is for just to add protein, or if you're trying to gain weight. So it's really hard to say which one is best. I think that if you're just going for like a protein supplement, something like, I know Premier Protein is an easy one. Costco carries it. It's low in calories. It has a good protein source. It's easy to find. We've been using Protein 2.0 in the hospital, and I've seen that at Costco as well. And that's more of like a protein water, and that's also low in calories and has about 15 to 20 grams of protein. So that's an easy way to get some extra protein as well. I would just be really careful with some of the bottled drinks like Muscle Milk or the Ensures and Boost, because a lot of them have a fair number of calories, like 300 to 400 calories per bottle. So it adds up quickly. But that would be a good meal replacement. If you know you're not going to eat a meal, then you should be getting a supplement or a bar that has like 200 to 300 calories in it at least, so that you're getting that energy.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a long-term survivor. That is, I'm not a recent survivor, but I've really noticed what you said about the vitamin D deficiency, and it's like, oh my gosh, that may explain it. I'm a hidden burn survivor, so I'm grafted on both my legs and my left arm, and I'm mindful of keeping myself out of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm not out there except when I maybe got field work. My point is, I need to really focus on, and I'm a scientist, so I want to know what my baselines am I. So that's a good thing to go back to. This is the end of the year, so I go see my doctor, and should I specifically say, can you check my vitamin D levels, or is it in some blood panel that he just doesn't mention to me?
No, that's a good question. That needs to be requested separate from your blood chemistries.
Yeah.
So I would ask for that specifically.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I need to work on taking in more vitamin D, whether it's from the milk product that I use or foods. And I like all the seasonal ones. I mean, I'm a real big on butternut squash and beets and all the cool stuff. I mean, there's a lot of good fall season foods that I like. So
Yes.
yeah, I'm all for that.
Good. Yeah, definitely get your vitamin D level checked as we're heading into the winter months, so you'll see where you're at coming out of summer.
Mm-hmm.
If your vitamin D is normal, then just keep doing what you're doing, but check it annually. But if it's low, definitely talk to your doctor about supplementing to bring your levels up.
Yeah, good. Thank you. That's helpful. I'm always trying to balance things, but I need to have that as a variable to keep in mind.
Yeah.
This was a really good, really informative. I'm so sorry I missed the first time, but I'm so glad it's reprised and recorded, because I'm sure that Lauren's already talked to you about maybe coming on to one of our monthly peer support sessions, because wow, that could really help a lot of our survivors who are either newbies, their first year out, or they finally drag themselves to join us and realize that they need support, and their diet is tantamount to they're just lost in what they're doing, and it could be that they've lost track of the diet and discipline that they had when they were in the unit.
Right.
It's not magic, but I mean, people like you are behind the designing it for them, and I don't think they realize that.
So this is
yeah.
probably a good spot to stop the recording, but
Yes.
we can continue the conversation, but let me just do that.